Have you ever felt a hunger so strong that it consumed your whole being? In that darkness lies the lesson of the Wendigo. Imagine you find yourself within the deep woods of Minnesota. Snow blurs your vision as the icy cold chills your bones. Your path disappears. You panic because being lost here means you could be consumed by something some indigenous groups of the region call the evil spirit that devours mankind. This is Monster Quest Origins. Voyageurs National Park, located in northern Minnesota near the Canadian border, is known as a park of water, islands, and horizons.
The mystery of this park lies in the deep forests of this area. They're expansive and vast, free of signs of people. So you feel like you've slipped back into time, and that makes you feel vulnerable in a way that you don't in most modern life.
And when winter comes to Voyageurs, it brings with it an even more unsettling vulnerability.
The whole area's kind of become a different world. We have really cold temperatures. It's not uncommon for it to get below -40 Fahrenheit, and it's quiet.
And the winter may bring something else besides the icy cold. The Wendigo has been a staple of popular culture for some time. Massive in size, sometimes with ancient antlers jutting out from its fleshless head, with a horrifying bare skull where a face should be. But what if I told you that the origins of the creature are far different than any depiction in movies or TV?
In some ways, it feels unnatural for me to use the term voyageurs, because voyageurs is a renaming of an Ojibwe landscape and homeland. Ojibwe people lived there for a very long time, hunting, fishing, gathering, gardening. There's a whole human history of what became Voyageurs National Park.
That human history dates as far back as 10,000 years. 10,000 years of stories that took root in this land.
Ojibwe people are fantastic storytellers. And for us, stories is a way that we remember our history, how they lived, where they lived, things that changed in their lifetimes. And there is a figure that is prominent in Ojibwe traditions called the Wendigo. And the Wendigo is a metaphor for evil.
The story of this spirit is found across Algonquin peoples, including the Ojibwe. And for some, even speaking its name is a cultural taboo, potentially inviting its presence. And while its telling varies across these groups, similarities remain. It is a spirit transforming humans who succumb to greed, selfishness, or at their most desperate, cannibalism. This ominous specter of indigenous lore paints a far different picture from what we see in popular culture today. No antlers, no animal skull where a human head should be, no howling in the night like a beast. So how then did it evolve into the figure of modern media? Well, it all starts with a novella in 1910 by British author Algernon Blackwood. In it, a small hunting party ventures into the deep Canadian forest. One of the guides, a French-Canadian man named Defago, grows increasingly disturbed, like the woods themselves are watching him. That night, something ancient stirs. Simpson, the youngest of the group, hears Defago whisper a word he won't explain: Wendigo. The next morning, Defago is gone. Simpson finds strange tracks, massive ones running beside Defago's, until they start to merge. Then comes the voice, It sounds like Defago, but distorted. They eventually find him, incoherent and broken, only to lose him again, this time to death. Blackwood wrote that the indigenous cook named Punk, quote, knew what it all meant. Defago had seen the Wendigo. But what did he see? When they find Defago, he's described as the face was more animal than human, the features drawn about into wrong proportions, the skin loose and hanging. And yet, there's no mention of deer antlers or a fully bare skull. So what happened? How did we get the monster of popular culture? Blackwood's story was published in 1910. 34 years later, it was reprinted in the pulp magazine Famous Fantastic Mysteries, and it was accompanied by an illustration, one that diverges greatly from the indigenous spirit. Blackwood had no ties to indigenous communities, and like a lot of writers at the time, he pulled from folklore that wasn't his. And whether he meant to or not, he turned a deeply symbolic figure into just a monster, one that had no connection to the land of the Ojibwe, which was also being transformed.
This is very much a changed landscape from the one that my ancestors would have known in the Great Lakes. There was gradual Ojibwe migration away from voyageurs because that land was being claimed by settlers and timber companies.
There was commercial logging that basically stripped most of the land of all the trees.
Today, we think, what a pristine landscape. But realize these majestic trees were already logged off by early 20th century. So I don't think it was very comprehensible to American Indians. People were literally destroying everything they valued. It must have just seemed like the end of the world. So I can only imagine that Ojibwe people talked a lot about the Wendigo because the timber companies were Wendigo.
At the end of Algernon Blackwood's story, he describes Punk's escape as if the terror of a whole race drove him. But it was a terror Blackwood likely wouldn't have understood.
One of the reasons why I became a historian is because I felt that the history of this country had not been told from the perspective of Native people, because they have a lot to offer about how to live in a landscape without destroying it and without creating fictions about what happened in the past.
The Wendigo, a representation of greed and selfishness for the Ojibwe people, a being that took on a new life in a popular culture that is sometimes guilty of those very things. An indigenous spirit twisted and warped for commercial use, and one with a trail that, if you follow, may lead you back to important lessons. Lessons that may protect us from the icy, dark, and devouring places of our own souls.